I never once asked why it happened to me.
Lindsay Walz never asked why a twist of fate, like missing her normal exit home from work, brought her to the 35W bridge the night it collapsed. Instead,
here is the place, in this class in particular, is an opportunity to let go of all of that stuff, right?
She promised to make her dream of opening a youth center a reality.
For me, that moment happened on the bridge, and I never looked back. I knew that this place would come to be, and so far it has.
Courageous Hearts, located in the Bancroft neighborhood of Minneapolis, is a place for kids 10 to 18 years old to come and express their issues through art.
It might just be that you have more practice.
It was art that helped Lindsay work through her trauma after surviving the bridge collapse 7 years ago. And like the vivid images the children paint in class.
Yep, you can always keep working on it next week.
Lindsay vividly recalls the moment she heard a beam snap and the ground beneath her disappear.
While I was falling, I kind of anticipated that I was on concrete, so I would land on concrete, and I basically envisioned my body, everything just being splat on the concrete. That was what I expected to happen, and I was just waiting for it to happen. I didn't think about the river being a part of the story, but my car did a straight nosedive into the river, and as soon as my car started to enter the water started entering into my car.
Lindsay floated through the car looking for a way out. In the murky waters of the Mississippi, she couldn't see and soon began to gasp for air, instead taking in gulps of water.
I started to give up as the gasps of water kept coming in, and I knew that it was only a matter of time, so I really kind of shifted my thinking from fighting to kind of surrendering and just accepting that that was my fate, that I was going to die at the bottom of the river, and there wasn't anything I could do about it. So I kind of stopped the pushing and the moving around and was just kind of waiting for death. I felt this flash of light and started to float, and when I started to float, I assumed that, well, that's dying, right? That's a part of the death experience that they describe, and whoever they is. And so but I didn't feel dead. I didn't feel, and I don't know what dead feels like, but I felt like I was still in my body, and I felt like I was still alive. So I just kept kicking, and I was clearly beyond the confines that I'd been in my car, and I reached the surface of the water and took a gasp of air and had to turn around and get oriented to where I was and saw the destruction above the water.
With a broken back, she kicked her way to the surface and was helped to a median where she waited 45 minutes for medical assistance. It was in this chaotic place she experienced kindness.
But so that was this moment for me that was always so vivid, because it just, even in the midst of that trauma and that experience, people were right there, ready to help.
Lindsay spent 5 months in a back brace, but her emotional scars cut much deeper.
Just experiencing the loss of life and memorializing that day. It took me until the 5th anniversary, and on that day I actually stood at the Stone Arch Bridge and cried for the first time.
You hear the term surreal?
Yeah.
I had never experienced it till that night.
Ramsey County Chaplain Thell was dispatched to the bridge the night it collapsed.
I go to sit down to eat dinner, and I get the page. And it's the bridge collapse.
Initially, he stayed with construction workers on the North Bank near a railroad yard. Although no one said a word, his presence said everything.
They were basically in shock.
He spent the rest of the night and the weeks that followed sitting with families waiting to learn the fate of their loved ones.
They were still recovering bodies yet for weeks.
Through the organization Survivor Resources, Frank began a survivor support group who met regularly after the bridge collapse and continued for nearly 3 years.
Sometimes your presence is really all that's needed, that there's somebody there that cares, that'll be with you through the journey.
Lindsay, who was a part of the group, has had ups and downs on her own journey, but has had tremendous support from family and friends in both her recovery and starting Courageous Hearts.
It wouldn't be possible with all of the hundreds, you know, there's been so many people who have come in and helped, and we're, you know, run entirely by volunteers at this point, including myself. And so we just keep trucking and keep figuring out how to make it happen. And, you know, little grants have come in along the way, and we have little bits of donations that come in here and there from people, and we just keep making it happen on a shoestring budget.
Her vision is for Hearts to become that well-known yet little shop on the corner, a small-town kind of place in the big city. And this is why, since that fateful night in August, she's continued to move forward despite constant reminders of the past.
On August 1st, in a couple weeks, I'll be taking the day off, and that's always my day. I dedicate that as my day to reflect on life and to reflect on where I've been, and it's I don't even know if I can even fully comprehend all that has happened in the last 7 years, really. It's been a wild ride, to say the least, but I'm really, really happy to be on this end of it. Thank you. Have fun today. Woohoo! Yeah, I think they might need a rinse yet.